Dandavat pranams to everybody. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. So this is our 12th day of the Parikrama, and today we're on a very short journey. Yesterday was a very long journey on the buses. It's one of the longest days of the whole Parikrama was yesterday. So today is a compensation, is a very short day before Ekadashi, which is tomorrow. Tomorrow is that Rama Ekadashi. So today, just a short walk across the Jamuna, and then we'll describe that. Okay.
Namo Om Vishnupadaya Radhikaya Priyatmane Sri Srimad Bhaktivedanta Narayaniti Namine Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatadashakarine Namo Om Vishnupadaya Gauraprasthaya Bhutale Shri Srimad Bhakti Pragyana Keshavariti Namine Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Iti Namine Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Govinda Vrindavandite Triloka Shoka Harini Prasanna Vakra Pankage Nikunja Bhuvilasini Rajendra Manu Nandini Rajendra Sunu Sangate Kadakarishya Hamam Kripaka Taksha Bhajanam Ashoka Vriksha Vallari Vitana Vanda Pasite Prabhala Vala Pallava Prabharunandri Tomale Parabhaya Spuratkare Prabhuta Sampadalaye Kada Karishya Srinam Kripaka Ananga Ranga Mangala Prasanga Mangula Rugam Savibramam Sasambramam Niganta Bhagapatale Nirantaranga Shikrita Pratiti Nandanandane Kadakarishyasi Amam Kripakatakshabhajanam Adi Sarvana Champaka Pradipta Gaura Vigrahe Luka Prabha Parastatoti Sharajandu Mandale Vichitra Chitra Sancharakshakora Savalochane Kadakarishyasi Amam Vipakatakshabhajanam Dhammadati Omane Pramodamanda Mandite Priyanuraga Rangite Kalavilasa Pandite Ananya Namya Kunja Raja Kama Keri Kovide Karnakarishya Amam Bhajanam Ashesha Bhavadira Hira Bhushite Prabhu Tashata Kunda Kunda Kundi Kunda Sastani Prashastamanga Hasya Chana Purna Shokya Sagane Kadata Ishya Srihamam Kripata Takshabhajanam Nala Bala Vallavi Taranga Ranga Dolate Lata Galasya Lola Nila Loshana Lokane Galalulam Nilandano Gamo Gamo Jadakarishya Srihamam Kripakatakshabhajanam Surana Marikanshita Trileka Kambukangade Trisutra Mangali Guna Triratna Dikti Diviti Alola Vila Kundala Prashuna Gocha Gampite Jadakarishya Sriyamam Kripakatakshabhajanam Vindalambamana Pushpamethaladune Prashastaranga Kinkiri Kalapamadhyamanjale Karinda Sundarandika Varohaso Bhagavate Kadakarisya Sriyamam Vipakatakshabhajanam Amekamanchanadamanjulo Kalalavaskalat Samajaraja Amsaram Sanikanati Gaurave Vilola Hema Balari Vigambicharu Chanklame Kadakarisya Srihamam Kripakatakshabhajanam Ananta Koti Vishnu Lokanama Padmajachite Vimadrija Pulomaja Virinsha Jabarapade Apara Siddhi Vidigvasa Padangulina Ke Kadakarisya Srihamam Kripakatakshabhajanam Maheshwari Priyeshwari, Swadeshwari, Sudeshwari, Triveda Bharateshwari, Pramana Shashareshwari, Rameshwari, Chameshwari, Pramoda Kananeshwari, Rajeshwari, Udadike, Shiradike, Namostute, Iti Mama Bhutam Savam Nishamyamanunandini Karotu Sarvatanganam Kripakatakshabhajanam Tavedhanaiva sanchita Virupakamanasanam Tavedhanavadhanvasandomandala Vishamam Sudhatatakshabhajanam Kripakatakshabhajanam Sucharupatramandalam Sukarnaratnakundalam Sucharchitam Gachandanam Namami Nandanandanam Sudirganetra Pankajam Shikishikandamurjajam Anangakoti Mohanam Namami Nandanandanam Sunasidagramokitam Swachandadantapandikam Navambudangachirkanam Namami Nandanandanam Kareno Vena Ranjitam Gati Karendra Ganjitam Tukula Pita Shobhanam Namami Nandanandanam Tribhanga Deha Sundaram Nakaduti Sudataram Amulya Ratna Bhushanam Namami Nandanandanam Sugandha Anga Sauravam Puro Virajika Sutam Suratri Vasaranjanam Namami Nandanandanam Vrindavana Sunagaram Vilasanudavasasam Surendra Garbha Mochanam Namami Nandanandanam Dandana Sunayakam Sada Sukha Pradayakam Jaganmala Pralobanam Namami Nandanandanam Srinandanandanastaka Prateya Shraddhayamrita Terebhava Hindustaram Lavetaram Viyogmadam Namami Nandanandanam Namami Nandanandanam Namami Nandanandanam Namami Nandanandanam Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva, Guru Deva, Jaya 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 Prabhupada, 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 Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Haribo.
Go Premanandi, Hari Hari Bo. Jai Shri Shri Guru Garanga Ganhavika Giridhari Radha Madan Mohan Ju Ki Jai. Radha Govinda Dev ki jai, Radha Gopinath Ju ki jai, Radha Damodar Ju ki jai, Nityananda Brai ki jai, Satchinandana Gauda Hari ki jai. Jai Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Astotar Shishimad Shila Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj ki jai. Jai Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Astotar Shishimad Shila Bhakti Vedanta Swami Shila Prabhupada ki jai. Jai Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Astotar Shishimad Shila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj ki jai. Jai Jagat Guru Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Astotar Shishimad Shila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada ki jai. Jai Paramahamsa Mahabhagavat Shila Gaura Kishodas Babaji Maharaj ki jai. Jai Saptam Goswami Shila Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur ki jai. Jai Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj ki jai. Jai Shila Baladev Vitibhushan Gaudi Varantaracharya ki jai. Shila Vishnath Chakravarti Thakur ki jai. Jai Narottam Srinivas Shyamananda Prabhu Treya ki jai. Shila Krishna's Kaviraj Goswami ki jai. Jai Shri Rup Sanatan Shri Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jiva Gopal Bhattadas Raghunath Sad Goswami Prabhu's ki jai. Jai Swarab Damodar Rai Ramananda Gauda Parsada ki jai. Namacharya Shila Haridas Thakur ki jai. Prem Siga Hosi Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Shri Gauda Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shamakund Radha Kund Giri Govardhana ki jai. Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Navadvip Dham ki jai. Ganga Jamuna ki jai. Riyat Mridanga ki jai, Sankirtan Yagya ki jai, Nam Bhajan ki jai, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Sudarshan Chakra ki jai, Nrsingadev Bhagavan ki jai, Prahlad Maharaj ki jai, Gopeshwar Mahadev Maharaj ki jai, Yogamaya Punamasi Devi Maharani ki jai, Antadvip, Mayapur, Simantadvip, Godandvip, Madhyadvip, Koladvip, Ritadvip, Danadvip, Modandvip, Rudradvip, Atmakanavadvip Dham ki jai, Bandiravan, Baduravan, Baelvan, Lohavan, Vahavan, Madhuvan, Talvan, Kamudvan, Bahulavan, Vrindavan, Kadiyavan, Kamyavan, Vraja-mandala ki jai, Anantakota Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Urja Brat ki jai, Niyama Seva ki jai, Kartik Maina ki jai, Vraja-mandala Parikrama 2023 ki jai, Gauda Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol. Om Aginati Mirandasya Gyananjala Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Guruve Gauda Chandraya Radhikaya Tadalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tarabhaktaya Namo Namaha Yam Prabhajantamana Petyam Apeti Krityam Dvaipayano Viraha Katara Ajuhava Putre titam mayatayo taravo binirustam sarvabhutam munim hridimanaatoshmi anapitachirim chirat kurunavaritino kalo samadapaitam unnata ujvala rasam svabhakti shriyam hari purata sundaratu dikatam vasadipita sadahradare kandare svaratu vasachinandanaha bhaktiya vihina aparada lakshay shiptas chakarmadi tarangamadye Kripa Mayitvam Sharanam Prapana Brinde Namaste Charanarvindam Bhajami Radham Aravinda Netram Smarami Radham Madhurashmitasyam Vadami Radham Karuna Bharadram Tato Mamanasti Katyana Kapi. I'm first of all offering millions and millions of Dandavat pranams unto the lotus feet of most beloved Gurudev. Nityalila Pravishta Om Asto Tarasarashishimad Shila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. And I'm offering the same again, millions and millions of times, unto the lotus feet of our beloved Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Asto Tarazara Shishimad Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, and all our illustrious Rupanuga Guru Vargya, and all the Vaishnava and Vaishnavi devotees of the Lord, my Dandavat pranams to all of you. Vanchakalpa Tarupyascha Kripa Sindhavevacha Patitanam Pavnibhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namaha. So, today, we're going on a very gentle parikrama. It's very less intense, no bus. And we're just going to literally walk out of the front gate, more or less down the embankment of the Jamuna, and we're going to take a boat across the Jamuna for 5 rupees each person. And there's a number of boats there. And we'll land on the other side and because Jamuna Devi was flooded so extensively this year, then it's very, very clean sand on the other side. It's very often it's white and it's very beautiful to walk through. So we'll walk through the sand initially. We're going to walk about 2 kilometers perhaps. We can almost see the little village of Baelvana, or the forest of Baelvana, where we're going to go. So we walk through the bushes and trees and we reach this small village where Lakshmi Devi is still residing today. And this is Baelvana. This is what we call Baelvana. It's the village that is in Baelvana, the forest of bales. If you know what a bale fruit is, bale is very hard. And the sakas would regularly come here with Krishna and Baladev, and they would enjoy different sorts of sports with the bale fruits. And they would take the bale fruits, they would prepare them and so on. You smash them and then open them and then squeeze them in water. And it makes a very refreshing drink, especially in summertime. And it's very nutritious and healthy, etc. So the cowherd boys, they would play here amongst the bale trees. Traditionally, we offer Shivji, the bale leaves and the bale fruits sometimes. So this is a very beautiful pastime area. And this little village that we're visiting right now is almost like it was perhaps almost 5,000 years ago, except for some telegraph poles. But basically, it's just a small village filled with cowherd pens and buffaloes, and you have to slide through the cow dung on the streets, etc. So it's a very sweet place, thousands of little kids running around everywhere. It's a very attractive place. It's very, especially for Westerners coming from the crowded metropolis cities of the West, coming into this tiny little village. And the residents there, the villagers, they're always very happy to see the Western devotees coming. And not for any specific purpose, not to get some money or something, but they're just genuinely happy. And the devotees, we wind our way through with kirtan through the village, and then we come into a large compound, a temple compound, and this is dedicated to worship of Lakshmi Devi. And Lakshmi Devi is there performing austerities. Lakshmi Devi residing on the chest or massaging the lotus feet of Lord Narayan. And then she was told by Narad about the exquisite nature and the beauty of the Rasa Leela. And being in a body of a female, Lakshmi Devi naturally wants to join the festivities. Ladies like to attend festivities, perhaps even more so than men. We know the example of Sati, when she wanted to leave Shivji and go to the festivity of Daksha's sacrifice, even though Shivji was saying, no, don't go, but still Sati. And it's described there in the commentaries that a lady's nature, she likes to participate in festivals of this nature. But when Lakshmi Devi, she hears about the extraordinary nature of the Rasa Leela and the exquisite moods that are manifest during that festival, she very much wanted to attend and enter and see that supreme Brajendra Nandan Shyam Sundar. We know the conversation between Venkatabhata and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Sri Rangam. Venkatabhata was there with his brother, Prabodhananda Saraswati, and they were Sri Sampradayas. They were worshipping Lakshmi Dev. So Mahaprabhu, he stays there for 4 months of the Chatumasya, of the rainy season. He stays with them. And he is always trying to encourage Venkatabhata to think about Brajendra Nandan Shyam Sundar, because in Sri Rangam, of course, they have the huge deity of Sri Ranganath. And this is very, very Aishwarya. And the Sri Sampradaya is very much Aishwarya mood. The Ishtadev is Lakshmi Devi in the Sri Sampradaya. So Mahaprabhu was trying to interest them, and finally he asked Venkatabhata the question, If you're Lakshmi Devi, she's so sold out to Lord Narayan, why does she so much desire to join the Ras Leela in Vrindavan? Why is that? And Venkatabhata, he couldn't give a sufficient satisfying answer. And Mahaprabhu was just chuckling and laughing and so on. This conception coming from Aishwarya to Madhurya is massive. It's a huge, huge change, transition of consciousness. It really is enormous. It's like the worship in traditionally South India, particularly, especially amongst the Sri Sampradaya, their worship, sometimes you'll catch a video or something will come around of the nature and opulence of that worship today, even. Then how are you going to accept that that same personality that you're worshiping with such opulence and such magnificence, huge, huge fans, etc. they're using, huge bells, whole stacks of incense. Everything is just like fully opulent, because this is the supreme personality of Godhead in his opulent mood. And Sri Narayan, he likes it like that. He accepts that worship. And for most in the world, that worship comes very easily. That divine worship of that supreme object who is so far away, and we are so insignificant, and we can only just offer pranam, pranam, pranam. But this is not what Mahaprabhu is actually offering the jivas in this Kali Yuga. Only in this, not just in this Kali Yuga, but in the whole entire day of Lord Brahma, there's only this one little window open. We've said so many times where Mahaprabhu is offering this gift of Rag Mag, which is totally in contrast to this Aishwarya worship. So Lakshmi Devi, she's in Vaikuntha, and she's the closest associate of Lord Narayan. We can read in Brihat Bhagavatamrita, all the various Sunanda and Nanda, the servants of Narayan, they're all fanning him and chanting so many mantras, etc. And Gopkumar, he comes there and he's just dressed in his forest attire. They say, no, you should put some proper cloth on, Don't come like this, and don't play that flute here. Don't sing and dance like that. No, we are all very sober here. We're singing like choirs, singing these mantras to worship. This is the mood. And it's very, very beautiful, but it's completely regal. It's completely reverential. The conditioned soul, he feels very, very fallen. He feels very, very insignificant. And there's a beautiful verse in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Lila, chapter 4. And Krishnadas Kaviraj, he's quoting Krishna as saying, this is the verse, Aishwarya Janat Sabha Jagat Mishrita, Aishwarya Stila Prem Nahi Mera Prita. Although the universe is filled with knowledge of my majesty, but love weakened by that sense of majesty doesn't control me. It doesn't control Krishna. And then he goes on to say in the next verse after that, if one regards me as the Supreme Lord and himself as subordinate, I do not become subservient to his love, nor can it control me. So we know the different types of rati that are described of the queens, for example. They are Samanjasa rati. Kubja is Sadarani rati. The queens are Samanjasa rati. And this is described, it goes to the stage of Anurag, but it doesn't control Krishna. Krishna doesn't even need to take his flute to Dwaraka, because he just has to give the word and they just follow exactly what he says. This is the mood of Aishwarya, extreme awe and reverence. And most of the populace can relate to this. Most of the people, we know in the Western countries, they all go to church. Why the church is built so big? Because they're supposed to be intimidating. It's supposed to remind us that we're very small, and God is very big. If you go to the Vatican, it's just enormous. It's completely intimidating. So that whole mood of Aishwarya, trying to, and in this material world, these religions are trying to control through fear. This path of Vaidhi is prompted by fear. Understand that. Sometimes we can translate fear as being duty. It's like it's described that the sun rides its orbit out of fear. Fire incinerates out of fear. The wind blows out of fear. Indra arranges for the rain out of fear. But you can translate fear as duty also. Duty is a kind of, there's some fear in duty. We're compelled to do this. We have to do this. It's not a spontaneous mood. So how to make this incredible transition from this fearful path of God-fearing into a completely dedicated, sincere, loving mood towards Krishna? How to do that? Practically impossible for the jiva, except when we hear of the sweet pastimes, these Madhurya pastimes that we're hearing constantly. Mother Yashoda's affection and attraction to Krishna. We explained the other day at Brahmandagat, when Mother Yashoda is looking down in the mouth of Krishna and she's seeing all the universes within her son's abdomen. But she doesn't think, yes, this is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Devaki thought like that. Vasudeva thought like that. They couldn't accept Krishna as their son. They could only accept him as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this condition of consciousness initially is necessary for the devotees to deeply appreciate this Aishwarya mood. If the devotees haven't ever had this Aishwarya mood, then they can't really genuinely enter into Raganuga. You can't just jump into Raganuga Bhakti from zero. This is why Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada came and laid the foundation completely in the Western world. I'm talking now about the Western devotees. Perhaps on this thread, I'm talking to many Western devotees who were brought up there. We didn't even know about God. We didn't even know about, the only thought we had of God was, he's so great, he's so great. We didn't even know his name. We didn't know where he was from. But then Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada introduced us to who he was and where he's from. That's the first step. And then there is a second step, if we're fortunate to listen to the moods of Chaitanya Charitamrita. What is Krishna's Kaviraj implying? All the way through Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishna's Kaviraj, he implies this mood of Madhurya. My Gurudev used to describe there are these two worlds. There is Aishwarya Dham and there is Madhurya Dham. And once the sadhak knows conclusively about these two moods and their distinction and about the intricacies of each conception, then he's no longer a kanishta. But he will always be a kanishta until he knows this distinction completely. We have to know this distinction. We read in the first canto about Queen Kunti. I've mentioned this previously in the 8th chapter of the first canto. I think it's the 42nd verse. Queen Kunti, she's saying that she doesn't understand how Mother Yashoda can bind Krishna. This is like literally inconceivable for her to appreciate. She can't understand that. They don't, like Uddhav, for example. Uddhav is a Jnani Bhakta. What does Jnani Bhakta mean? It means they understand all Krishna's Aishwarya opulences. They have knowledge of Krishna's Aishwarya. Bhishma Dev, he's also a Jnani Bhakta. Jad Bharat, or Bharat Maharaj, he's also a Jnani Bhakta. They understand the extent of Krishna's greatness. Once you understand the greatness of the Lord, and he is great, there's no denying it. We can't say, well, I'm not going to think about it. This is what I'm trying to share this evening, that the Lord is completely great. He is full of Aishwarya. But there is another conception where he himself chooses to go into this world of Madhurya. in Dwaraka, all the residents are completely dependent on Krishna. They are considering Krishna is Paramatma. He's the supersoul. Or Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead. Or Krishna is certainly the greatest of all the yadus. He's a prince. He's not even a king. But they think that he's the greatest mystic or the greatest yogi. They all have this conception. Everybody. They depend on Krishna. They're not like fearful of their environment from the enemies. Why did Krishna make that fortress in the middle of the ocean? Because there were so many enemies to Krishna. Salva, etc. Dantavakra, so many enemies wanted to, they were so envious of Krishna because Krishna was so powerful personality. And Krishna had 16,000 queens. Krishna just flaunted his opulences, and that created a lot of envy amongst the demons. So Krishna thought it wise to make that island, that fortified island, to protect himself and his Yadu clan, the Vrishnis. So many millions of people within his clan. But none of them were afraid of their enemies because they all believed that Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead and he will protect us in any instance. Not like the Brijbasis. The Brijbasis are not believing like that. Even though Krishna does always protect them, but they don't believe, they're not fearless of the demons. They're most concerned about the demons. That's why they leave Gokul and they go back to Nandagan and Varshana. Krishna stays in Gokul until he's about two and a half years old. And then the whole family, the whole village, all the Brijbasis, they all leave Gokul and go to Nandagan and Varshana because of the fearful conditions by the demons. So they even though they know Krishna is going to protect us, but still they're not depending on that like that. So Krishna, when he's in Dwaraka, he is like a king, even though he's a prince, but he's acting like a king, having so many wives. Having 16,000 wives is about as opulent as you can get, right? And having so many children and grandchildren, etc. You can't become more opulent than this. So, but and the residents, they're honoring him with that mood. But in Braj, such a total contrast that the Brijbasis, they believe that Krishna won't even eat without us bringing him something to eat, without him giving him some butter, etc. They know that Krishna is completely dependent on us. This is the mood of the Brijbasis, that they know that Krishna, for his very existence, depends on them. And they control him by that affection. And this rati is called Samartha rati. This is the rati of the gopis. They control Krishna. Their love is sufficient to control Krishna. Krishna is hungry to taste love. But see what Lakshmi Devi, her predicament, her difficulty. She's a Brahmani, wife of Patni. She's the principal consort of Lord Narayan. And in order to enter Braj, she has to marry a Gopa. How is she going to marry a Gopa when in her sanskar she's already married to Lord Narayan? You remember from the churning of the ocean, here, that beautiful pastime, when Lakshmi Devi appears with the garland and she's looking for her husband, and all the demigods, they all want, oh, come, garland me. They see how beautiful Lakshmi is, but then when Lakshmi spies Lord Narayan, then immediately Vishnu, she immediately puts that garland on Vishnu. And so this is explained in that pastime. So even though it's like every man in the world wants to have the fortune of Lakshmi Devi, wants to have the fortune of all that material opulence in some way. But Krishna, he doesn't want it at all. And this is why Lakshmi Devi is really attracted to him for that reason also. But this is her Lord and Master. But she doesn't control him. She doesn't have that potency. Krishna comes as, or Lakshmi comes on the chest of Krishna as a line, that Srivat's line on, or a little hair growing on the chest of Krishna. And the gopis are always referencing this, you know, in their deluded, jealous anger towards Krishna. But Lakshmi Devi, she can't even enter into this Rasalila. Purnamasi comes one time and says, okay, can you now accept a gopa as a husband? She says, no, not possible. Can you make cow patties? Oh, I never made before cow patties. Like, how can she be like a gopi? She can't. And Krishna is controlled by the love of the gopis. This love of the gopis is exceptional. But Lakshmi Devi, she's like a yogi, and she's determined to somehow or other access this Ras Leela by her yogic effort. And it's demonstrating to us that you can't enter Ras Leela by your own power. You have to melt the heart, first of all, of Shivji. We've already described Shivji as the Ketrapal, he's the gatekeeper. First of all, he has to be melted. And then he will consider your adhikar to enter into that arena of ras. But this arena of ras has the conception that Krishna is the supreme relisher. He's the supreme enjoyer. And all the gopis performing in that lila are only considering the happiness of Krishna and the satisfaction of Krishna. And of course, they are being satisfied simultaneously, but that is not their intention. Their intention is simply to, it's described, satisfy Krishna's calm. This is their sole intention. So Lakshmi Devi, she doesn't have that adhikar. And until this very day, she is still present in Baelvana, where we are today, meditating on how to access the Rasa Leela. So she's trying through her mystic opulences, etc. But sometimes it's described that Purnamasi will come. Sometimes it's described that Krishna himself will come and offer her a way into the Ras Leela. But in either case, she doesn't have the qualification to enter. But we, as sadhaks today, under the guidance of our Guru Vargya, have an opportunity to understand this huge distinction between Aishwarya and Madhurya. Because if we understand Madhurya, it doesn't mean that the Aishwarya just goes out the window. It doesn't mean we just forget about Krishna's greatness, etc. That would be like Sahajya. If we forgot about the greatness of Krishna, if we tried to be prematurely overly familiar with Krishna. I can remember my Gurudev teaching us these conceptions himself, because many times the local Indian devotees, they just had a knack, a tendency to become very close to my Gurudev. Sometimes the local Mathuravasis, they would just come and just sit at his feet and just begin massaging his feet very nicely. And it was a very nice mood. There was no discord. And then if a Westerner tried to imitate that, it would be completely like, you know, because they didn't have the Aishwarya at the background of it. If you've got full reverence internally, then you can manifest that sweetness on top of it. And Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in his Ragavartman Chandrika gives that beautiful analogy, very simple analogy of the salt. If you have a glass of water, the water represents Madhurya. And in Vaikuntha, if you have a glass of water and you put a whole spoonful of salt into the glass of water and mix it around, it's very, very salty. The salt represents Aishwarya. So the amount of water in a glass is very less. Therefore, that Aishwarya in Vaikuntha is very apparent. There's only 2.5 rasas in Vaikuntha. Shantaras and Dasyaras, principally, and a little bit of Sakyaras. But that Sakyaras is not like Madhurya Sakyaras. That's not the same Sakyaras at all. 2.5 rasas, and there's 12 rasas in Vrindavan. So, but then if you take a whole sack, 20 kilos of salt, and you throw it in the Ganga, if the Ganga is representing the Madhurya of Braj, that's how extensive the affection is in Vrindavan. It's just oceanic. So you put a whole, much more Aishwarya. In other words, there's a ton of more Aishwarya in Vrindavan than there is in Vaikuntha, but it's covered with millions of tons of more Madhurya to cover it. So understand this very clearly, that we're not looking to become familiar with the Lord without having a full grounded appreciation of what is Tattva and Siddhanta. Just like Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he walks us through with the Jaiva Dhamma up to the last Rasa Tattva chapters in Jaiva Dhamma. First of all, he gives us 12 chapters describing conclusively Sambandha Gyan. What is the nature of Krishna? What is the nature of Jiva? And what is the nature of the material energy? And what is the relationship between the three? Very, very clearly, he's giving us it in so many different examples through the different pastimes, etc., and the preachings in the 12 chapters. And then he gives us the Dasmula. Then he starts giving us the different tattvas, 3 tattvas about Krishna. Krishna being the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna being Sarva Shaktiman, and Krishna being Raso Vaisa. These 3 tattvas are the first principal prameyas. And then there's 3 tattvas about the jiva. There's the jiva tattva, just direct, vibhinamsa tattva. Then there's the jiva bound by maya and the jiva liberated by maya. So that's 6 prameyas he's giving us to start. And then he's giving us this achintya bheda abheda tattva, this reconciliation that Mahaprabhu gives us between the jiva and Krishna. Because prior to Mahaprabhu, all of our sampradaya lines, they weren't completely conclusive on actually what is the nature of the jiva in comparison to Krishna. They were understanding, because before was Sankaracharya and is saying this Advaitavad, everything is one, the jiva and Krishna is one. You are all one. So it was coming on the heels of that conception that Ramanuja was the first person, and he declared Vaishishta Advaitavad, that there's a speciality in the oneness. Then Madhvacharya comes and says, no, there's distinctly 2. There's Krishna and there's the jiva. But still the reconciliation wasn't complete until Mahaprabhu gave this divine appreciation that's simultaneously one and at the same time. The jiva is different and non-different to Krishna. We have that particle within us of Krishna, just like the sparks of a fire. They have the same potency as the whole fire, but they're tiny, tiny sparks. If that spark landed on some dry grass, it could incinerate a massive fire to incinerate the whole world if it was sufficiently dry, etc., like that. So that spark of Krishna is within all of us, but it's not the unlimited nature of Krishna at the same time. So this has to be understood. So this is what Mahaprabhu gave to our sampradayas. He explained this because previously the sampradayas, they had considered that Krishna himself is transforming into all these worlds, etc. Do you understand what I'm saying? This was called Vastu Parinamvad. This is the philosophy of Vastu Parinamvad. But Mahaprabhu came and said, no, it's not Krishna, it's Shakti that is transforming. It's Shakti Parinamvad. So Mahaprabhu, he gives this. So this is in the Jaiva Dhamma. This is in the 7th Prameya. And then it goes to what is sadhan bhakti, and then it goes to what is priti, what is prema bhakti. And that prema, so there's a step by step gradation of how to reach scripturally, shastrically, this stage of appreciating the ras gata. Because we know in, we call it like tattva vichar. Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Aham sarvasya prabhavo matahar sarvam pavratante. Krishna is the Lord of all the worlds and the spiritual worlds. Krishna is completely whole. But in Raskata, Krishna is putting his peacock feather and flute at the lotus feet of Sri Radhika. He's totally surrendering to Shri Radhika. So it's changed. So how is Lakshmi Devi going to make this transition without association? And principally, what will that association inspire? To just drop completely that previous identification that we had. Is Lakshmi Devi prepared to give up her magnificent identity as being the principal consort of Lord Narayan in Vaikuntha? Never. So how can she come into Braj? You can't have two horses at the same time. It's not possible. Not possible. You can't maintain these two conceptions. You can't go down this road of Madhurya Bhav at the same time you're dragging this material desire to be the greatest person. Sometimes we hear very often in institutions, for example, how somebody wants to be the big guru and they're fighting off all opposition, etc. Why? What have they understood about their relationship with Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead if they want to be someone great in this world? What's that got to do with bhakti? How unfortunate that that pratishta, which is the principal anartha in the whole forest of anarthas, remains solid, even for an apparently advanced devotee who is understanding so much of Shastra, but still he feels that he wants to control the mat. How can you even have that conception if you're actually a bhakta? You don't have the vision that Krishna is controlling every blade of grass even. There's nothing that Krishna is not controlling. How is Sharanagati going to be fulfilled in that conception? Why are they so much wanting to be, and all practically institutions down the line, unless they're run by a Mahabhagavat? Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur himself, he said categorically that an institution that is not run or controlled by a Mahabhagavat, who has no material desires, is no better than a society of drunks. He says it directly. Because there's some conditioned desire amongst the leaders. If they're not Mahabhagavats, then they have some twist. There's some twist on the whole agenda. It's got to be me putting in front there. I've got to be like somehow or other arrange it for me to be the center. And very simple, because they have so many adoring disciples, etc. They're ready to put them up there so they can fulfill their own personal desires. But how far away from bhakti is that? What has that got to do with devotion? We're trying to inspire in the heart, not just devotion, but this devotion of spontaneous attraction to Krishna. And we do this by hearing these remarkable pastimes of Krishna, especially his Balya Lila. We're going to discuss today in a few minutes the Dambanda Lila. So by hearing all the time, not just during the month of Kartik, the idea of taking these brats for this month of Kartik is to kickstart us into embracing these restrictions in our lives forever. If you take a brat to chant more rounds this month, try to maintain it. If you take a brat to chant certain stavas and sutis, try to maintain it. Whatever you do in the direction of Krishna, it's never going to be enough. We always want to do more, and we always can do more if we are sincere about our desire, because it's not us that is doing it. All the Guru Vargya will come and support us in our desire to please Krishna more. This is the dynamic of Bhakti Devi. It's ever increasing, ever increasing, ever. It has to be. The nature of love has to be evolving. It's not static. It's not a static relationship. It's an ecstatic relationship. It's always increasing. And if it's not increasing, then it's going backwards. I love the analogy of someone cycling up a hill. If you're not cycling very hard and then you stop, what happens? You immediately start going back down the hill. So if you stop your efforts to connect with Krishna in bhakti, what will happen? You'll just start rolling back down again. You can't stay in that place because bhakti doesn't have that type of dynamic where it's stagnant. It has to be moving forward. It has to be evolving. And it's so simple to do. It's actually, it's just so incredibly simple because the holy name itself will give us by itself that impetus, that push, that utsaha, if we choose to give it a priority feature in our lives. That's all we have to do. What are the other priorities in our lives? We should all examine, make a list. My house, my husband, my family, my car, myself, my reputation, my bank balance. We all smile and we all laugh when we say that, but it's just the truth. If we actually just turn the windows around and look inside, that's like the truth, is what we're putting as the priority of our existence. Especially this Facebook. I think this Facebook is a real Kali Yuga invention, because unless you get the thumbs up, you can be depressed. You put on your various posts and why are you putting on the posts? Oh, everyone, look at me. I put on this wonderful post today. Am I going to get lots of thumbs up? Yes, it's a preaching tool at the same time, but at the same time, beware of what it can be encouraging. Are we becoming dependent on the audience giving us a nice clap for something? Is that our life? That's the material acclaim. That's not something, a direction that the bhakta wants to go in. The bhakta wants to hear about Krishna. The bhakta wants to hear about his own relationship with Krishna. How can he please Krishna? You can please Krishna so much in the day. Just for example, just like offering your bhoga really sensitively and nicely, saying all the correct mantras when you offer, and really tune in to the 3 times a day. We're given the opportunity to feed Krishna directly. You know, it's a very wonderful opportunity to perform a direct service to Krishna. And we're given the opportunity to vibrate his holy name. Krishna loves hearing the sound vibration of his holy name. Mahaprabhu, when he was even a tiny little child, firstborn, wouldn't stop weeping and crying until he heard the holy name. Mahaprabhu loves to hear the sound of the holy name. Do we love to serve Mahaprabhu with the sound of the holy name ourselves? More and more and more? So there are so many simple ways how we can become immersed, but we have this little demon or big demon within us that is convinced that there's some type of pleasure in this material flickering world. We all stuck in this trap because we haven't had enough experience of the transcendental taste. It's like a catch-22. If we resolutely decide to, in the month of Kartik, for example, is the best opportunity, because the month of Kartik, it's like we perform a brat, and we're perhaps with other devotees and they're also performing their brats. And we can take this decision to become more focused, to rise more early, to chant more, to reflect and remember on the speciality of the relationships between Krishna in Vrindavan, rather than the Aishwarya moods in Dwaraka or Mathura or Ayodhya. In Ayodhya, Ram Lila is so nectarian to hear, but it's all Aishwarya Bhav. Nevertheless, it's very beautiful pastime, and we relish it. My Gurudev would speak for days, 3 or 4 days at a time, just on Ram Lila. Because once you know Krishna Lila, and once you know Madhurya Lila, you can look for that Madhurya aspect within Ram Lila. You could find those beautiful examples of the loving exchanges between the brothers, Lord Ram and Bharat Maharaj, Satrughna and Lakshman, and the queens, Kushalia, etc. We can understand that. But try to appreciate this huge distinction between Madhurya and Aishwarya, or between Raganuga and Vaidhi. It's the same distinction. We can understand it by absorbing Jaiva Dharma. Bhaktivinoda Thakur has the brilliance to actually unpack this particular topic. And my Gurudev discussed practically every time he spoke the same topic, this topic that I'm speaking now. How to realize the speciality of Madhurya in our own lives. Not a sahajiya way, not like becoming familiar. Like I gave the example of someone who didn't have sufficient Aishwarya trying to massage the lotus feet of my guru. Just completely, uncomfortable for everybody. They don't know how to do it nicely. I can remember sitting with my Gurudev, and my Gurudev sometime like late in the night would be discussing something, publication or something like that. And he would make us all be feeling so much loved by him. He's a Mahabhagavat. He has the capacity. And we would feel like you just want to put your arm around him. This kind of mood. But as soon as you start to put your arm around him, my Gurudev will just shoot you one glance. Hey, there's a line here. You have to know the distinction between familiarity and true affection. In the neophyte stage, true affection means dedicated service. I'm serving you. I'm jumping high. But am I jumping high enough to please you? I'm thinking like that. How to please, how to please, how to please. And gradually, we hear about my Gurudev's relationship with his Gurudev. He would jump on the same bed with his Gurudev. They would discuss matters of philosophical, discussion between them. And it would be very, very sweet, the relationship between them. Because my Gurudev had dedicated himself cent percent to service to his lotus feet. There was never a time when he wasn't attentive, even if it was like 12 o'clock at night or 1 o'clock in the morning. He would be completely sold out to the service of his Gurudev. So this is what's required to actually cross that line of consciousness. So how is Lakshmi Devi going to do that without association? How can she do that? She's trying to crack the gates of heaven with her own mystic yogic powers.
Also, that is Parakya, not the Sakya even.
Huh?
Also, that was Parakya, not even the Sakya.
Yes, exactly. Very, very, very good point. This is a brilliant point. Yes, thank you, Gora. Absolutely. Having not even as your husband, but as your paramour. Oh my God. Lakshmi Devi is a Brahmani. You can't break that Brahmin moral consciousness of having your Dharma Patni. That's what it's called, right? Your Dharma Patni, your husband. And to have a paramour. First marry a Gopa and then leave him to run to the forest for Krishna. These are huge conceptions. And how was Mahaprabhu able to give that to us? It's such a big conception when you consider it. But Mahaprabhu, because he's the Supreme Personality, he gave us this Srimad Bhagavatam. But in the Bhagavatam, not even the name of Radhika is mentioned. But all the gopis, they do run to Krishna. And Shukadev, he describes it 5,000 years ago. He describes the dynamic of Vrindavan. But the Acharyas, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Krishna's Kaviraj, Jiva Goswami, all these personalities, Sridhar Swami, they have to unpack it for us. And if the sadhak today in Kali Yuga is genuinely enthusiastic to attain this, if he's come to the conclusion, you can come to the conclusion in two ways. You can be completely fried with the material world and that there's no alternative except this, or you can be completely attracted to that transcendental conception and that material consideration will just evaporate anyway. So in either case, you can, but still this dedication to absorption in Krishna's pastimes is going to give us a conception of Madhurya. All these different pastimes we're describing in the forest, etc., with the sakas and the gopis, the accumulation of all these pastimes at the end of Kartik should give us a lot of leelas and pastimes. So Baelvana ki jai, Lakshmi Devi ki jai, Anantakota Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Gold Premanandi. So I'm going to speak something on Damodar Leela. This Damodar Leela is such an attractive description of this pastime. And Sanatana Goswami, he has written an original commentary on this Damodarastakam that Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Maharaj, he bases his commentary on the same commentary. And my Gurudev is basing his commentary on the commentary of his Gurudev and Sanatana Goswami. So we're getting three moods of commentary in the one commentary. But the principle is, as I've described, this huge leap between Aishwarya and Madhurya. So the other day, a couple of days ago, we read the whole practically of Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Maharaj's initial commentary. And it spoke about the Namam Ishwaram, this establishing the Aishwarya conception again of Krishna initially, and then purifying that Aishwarya conception. How? Oh, Krishna has earrings on his, kissing his cheeks. This is the next line. Lasat Kundalam. It's the next line that comes after Namamishwaram Satchit Ananda Rupam. Lasat Kundalam. So immediately this Aishwarya mood, but it has been established first. You couldn't have this without that strength of that Aishwarya initially. That would be Sahajya if it wasn't there. Understand, this over familiarity is uncomfortable. It's not nice to, because I've met people like that. They just think that they've got some taste as has connected with Krishna, but they've rejected any aspect of the Aishwarya, not realizing the Aishwarya is beautiful. Aishwarya is like a fresh mountain creek of purity. So that purity has to be there in the consciousness to go into the Madhurya. So then Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Maharaj began to describe about the Lavanamrita, the beauty of Krishna that Satyabrat Muni describes in this first stanza, that he's jumping down from his mother and he's running because he's afraid of his mother's, the stick that his mother's holding in his hand. So it goes, it's about Krishna's beauty initially, and then straight into the Leela of running. So now my Gurudev, he picks up on the mood of describing Krishna's beauty. I'm not going to read the whole chapter, but I just pick out parts of it. But initially, my Gurudev is writing about, he writes the same honor to Namamishwaram in the beginning. But then he very quickly goes into the description of Krishna's beauty. Because Krishna's beauty, we discussed the other day, those 6 opulences. And out of the 6 opulences, this Angi, the principal opulence of Krishna, is his beauty. This is the most powerful opulence, is his beauty. If you have darshan of Krishna, the most thing that you're aware of is his extreme beauty. This is what impacts the soul, is the beauty. Beauty is just astonishing. So my Gurudev picks this out. He says, in many places throughout, I'm reading from page 14. He says, in many places throughout Srimad Bhagavatam, the sweetness of Sri Krishna's beautiful form, Rup, has been described. However, among all of them, 3 specific descriptions are extraordinarily wonderful and touch the heart. The first description was spoken by Sri Brahma, the grandfather of the universe. And this is spoken in the 14th chapter. These are the prayers that we described yesterday. Yesterday, that Leela at Vatsavan, when Lord Brahma tried to steal Brahma Vimohan Lila. Then the next chapter, that was chapter 13, the next chapter 14 is when Lord Brahma begins to glorify Krishna. So now this is one of those verses where Lord Brahma is glorifying Krishna. It's no midyate bra vipuse tadid ambaraya. That's the first line. I won't read the rest of it. My Sanskrit is not brilliant. So the translation is that, O Master, in the entire universe, only you are worthy of being praised. O Brajendra Nandan, he's acknowledging that he's Brajendra Nandan. He's not Garbhadakshay Vishnu. He's not even Narayana Vaikuntha. He's Brajendra Nandan Sham Sundar. These names are very distinct and very important to appreciate. And my Gurudev has really given his whole life to explaining all these different names. Who is Parthasarthi? He's that person on the battle of Kurukshetra. He's a different personality. And what is the, rather than just saying God, but which God are we talking? This drives the sadhak into a more focused appreciation of where are his prayers actually being focused. Who is he beseeching to give him mercy? So, O Brajendra Nandan, son of the king of Braj. This personality doesn't take his birth as a king. He's not even a king in Dwarka. Not even his father, Vasudeva. It's Ugrasen, his grandfather, is the king of Dwarka. So in Dwarka also, he's just the free prince, so to speak. Even though he's like a king and they worship him like a king, but he's still a prince. And in Braj, he's definitely just a prince. Actually, they don't even consider him a prince. He's just one of the suckers. And Krishna, he loves this. He adores this mood where he'll get treated and bound by his mother, where he'll get beaten by Sridham in wrestling, where the gopis will always defeat Krishna. He's really happy to be defeated by his bhaktas. This is his bhaktavatsal, bhaktavatsal. Your body, appearing like a fresh rain cloud, is adorned with a yellow cloth that glistens like lightning and appears amazingly brilliant. So this brilliance we can't imagine. It's just so beautiful. If you look at the fresh rain clouds when you see them during the rainy season, they're blackish blue. Sometimes they're very, very black. But it's very wonderful to try to perceive what does Krishna's form, what is that hue, what is that color of. It's not like an African black skin. It's much more bluish amongst the black. It's very unique. Because you are wearing Makara-shaped earrings and a peacock feather on your head, your lotus face radiates an uncommon splendor. Around your neck is a garland made of innumerable kinds of forest flowers and leaves. Lord Brahma is talking to Krishna in the forest of Vrindavan when he's saying this. Tucked under your arm are a cane and a buffalo horn. Your flute, which is tied to your waist belt, looks very beautiful. His flute is just remarkable. In your lovely, soft hands is a morsel of yogurt and rice. This is what Lord Brahma is saying. And it's the most beautiful thing in existence that he's ever seen. Lord Brahma is the creator of these worlds that we inhabit. And he's manifested so many planets and all the progenitors of the planets, etc. He's done so much creation. What sort of artist is Lord Brahma? What sort of beauty can Lord Brahma appreciate himself? He knows the beauty of Swagaloka, etc. But here, he's completely overcome by the beauty and speciality of Brajendranandan Sham Sundar. Soft hands is a morsel of yogurt and rice. Even you are attracted by this cowherd boy attire of yours. I simply fall on the ground like a stick again and again at your feet, which are softer than lotuses and which are marked with all the auspicious signs. All the auspicious signs, the barley corn, the thunderbolt, the umbrella, the gold, the lion, the fish, and the weapons are all there on Krishna's lotus feet. So Lord Brahma is glorifying in this way. And now there's a second description that my Gurudev wants to describe. The second description was spoken by the wives of the Brahmanas. So we also discussed this pastime. When the wives of the Brahmanas, they came to beseech Krishna to accept them as their maidservants. And Krishna could not accept them because it was a different mood. They were Brahmanis, and Krishna's girlfriends are gopis. They're from a cowherd village. And the Brahmani wives, they said, no, we will just stay in the forest and we will not even come and disturb you. We'll just take the leftover garlands from your neck when you've finished, discarded with them, etc. But Krishna said, no, you have to go back. So this verse, Syamam Hiranya Paridim Vanamalya Vara. This is from the 23rd chapter. I explained yesterday the sort of structure of this 10th canto a little bit. It's fascinating when the curtain of the rainy season at chapter 20 seems to drop. Because after chapter 20, so many esoteric pastimes with Krishna and the gopis begin to take place. There's Venugit, then there's the taking the Brahmana cloths, and then there's the Brahmani wives themselves. And then it builds up till the 29th chapter of the Gopi Gita itself, this Rasa Panchadiya. So it's like a symphony. If you know how to listen to the sound vibrations of these chapters, it's like a symphony. And they are all singing. They actually, the mantras are all sung. So it's crescendoing. So this verse is saying, his complexion was dark bluish, like a fresh monsoon rain cloud, and the glistening yellow cloth that was draped on his shoulders subdued the splendor of gold. There was a garland of forest flowers around his neck. So these are the description that the Brahmin wives are describing Krishna as. And a beautiful peacock feather splendidly adorned his head. Playful designs were painted on his limbs with colored minerals, and he had decorated himself with bunches of newly sprouted leaves. I mean, is there anywhere in existence other than these Vedic scriptures that describe the nature and complexion, etc., of the Supreme Lord? No, absolutely nothing. It's just completely vacant. So when we hear these and appreciate this gift that we've been allowed to receive in this birth, why not take full advantage of it and unpack it to its max? Because it has so much more and more and more. It's dynamic. It's just increasing, ever increasing. Like this Astakam, it's ever increasing. Each verse, we can discuss sometime the structure of these 8 verses. It's increasing. Every verse is increasing in mood, in sweetness and speciality. Playful designs. He looked just like a dramatic dancer. He was resting one hand on the shoulder of his friend, and with the other hand he was playfully twirling a lotus flower. Ornaments decorated his ears, and curls of black hair were cascading down his cheeks. On his lotus face blossomed with a mild, playful smile. So this is very beautiful. And then the third description of beauty that my Gurudev describes is Baharpita Nata Varavapur Karaniyo Karanikaram Bibradvasha Kanaka Kapisham Vajayantim Chamalam Randram Venu Adara Sudaya Puriya Gopavrinde Vrindaranyam Swapada Ramanam Pravishet Gita Kirti. This is from Venu Gita. So this is from the 21st chapter. Within their hearts, the damsels of Braj began to see that Sri Krishna extended the charming forest of Vrindavan, accompanied by his cowherd boyfriends. Entered. Sri Krishna entered the charming forest of Vrindavan, accompanied by his cowherd boyfriends. A peacock feather decorated the top of his head, and yellow karnikara flowers were resting on top of his ears. He wore a golden yellow garment on his body, and a beautiful fragrant garland strung with 5 kinds of forest flowers circled his neck and hung down to his knees. Sri Krishna appeared like the best of dancers, performing a supremely captivating drama upon a stage. He filled up the holes of his flute with the nectar of his lips as the cowherd boys followed behind him, singing his glories, which purified the entire world. In this way, the forest of Vrindavan, which is more charming than the divine realm of Vaikuntha has become even more splendid than the impressions of his adorable lotus feet, which are marked with the all-auspicious symbols like the conch and the disc. So again, making the same analogies, the same references, the dark monsoon cloud, the yellow cloth like lightning, and referencing his lotus feet again. So all these are particular qualities of Krishna's attractive features. So I've said before, Krishna is like Lavan Amrita. What does Lavan Amrita mean? Lavan Amrita means the origin of beauty. The very origin of beauty is Krishna. So how can we turn away from that origin of beauty? There is yet another description of his beauty within the 5 chapters of Srimad Bhagavatam that recount the Ras Leela. The gopis, allured by the bewildering potency of Krishna's flute song, left their homes in the middle of the night and went to Sri Krishna. Yet when they came before him, he teased them and told them to return home. At that time, the gopis described the sweetness of Sri Krishna's beautiful form. Kaustriyanga Tekala Padyatra Venugit. This is from the 29th chapter. Try to absorb the Geets of this Srimad Bhagavatam. There's 5 Geets, or we can say there's 6 Geets, or we can say there's 7 Geets. There's 5 principal Geets in the Bhagavatam. There's the Venu Geet in chapter 21. There's this Pranaya Geet in chapter 29. Then there's the Gopi Geet in chapter 32, I think it is. And then there's Yugal Geet. And then there's, in chapter 47, there's Brahmara Geet. But there's also another Geet when Krishna, Geet means a song of separation. When Krishna is taken by Akrura, this is called Viraha Geet. When Krishna is taken to Mathura by Akrura, that's the 6th Geet. And then there's a 7th Geet also, the Mahishi Geet, when the Mahishis, the queens of Dwaraka, they sing a beautiful song of separation. This is in chapter 89. There's 90 chapters altogether in the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam. So the devotee should make an effort to come into this Bhagavatam, where he can taste the real beauty of all these Geets. So here this is describing the Venu Geet. O Sri Shamasundar, from your flute come the most endearing, slowly rolling melodies. One time my Gurudev was sitting at the foot of Charan Pahari near in Kamyavan, and he was sitting with us, and he started to describe the sound of Krishna's flute. He first of all asked us, have you all heard Krishna's flute song? And no one had heard, and it almost seemed like Gurudev was describing, oh, you haven't heard? He was surprised, you haven't heard Krishna? It goes up and down, and up and down. It rolls. And he was describing this sound vibration of Krishna's flute, just like it's described here. It's saying the, what was it?
Sri Syamsundar.
Sri Samsundra, from your flute, most endearing, slowly rolling melodies. Slowly rolling melodies of the flute song. Your beautiful form brings auspiciousness upon the entire universe. Moreover, upon seeing your beautiful form, even the bodies of the cows, birds, trees, and deer erupt with horripilation. After hearing the sweet melodies of your flute and beholding your captivating form, is there any woman in all the 3 worlds who would not become attached to you, and leaving aside all proper conduct and shyness, deviate from her religious principles? Lakshmi Devi, will she leave aside her Dharma Patni, her husband? How do you say husband?
Pati.
Pati, Dharma Pati. How will Lakshmi Devi leave aside her husband? Only by seeing Krishna. This is what I said. We have to hear regularly all the beautiful pastimes about Krishna in Vrindavan, and then we will wonder whatever happened to our material identity. It'll just disappear in another world. We'll just walk out of it. It's like if you want to get rid of a ghost, how do you get rid of a ghost? You just ignore them. Ghosts are real. And what is the strength of a ghost. They only have one strength, and that's fear. If they can intimidate you, then they can control you by their fear. Similarly, if this material world, if we have material desires, we're going to be intimidated by it because we think I'm not going to fulfill my material desires if I don't do so many things to get what I want. So I'm motivated by my material desires, therefore I'm filled with fear in case I don't fulfill my material desires. Why do people go to church? Because they want something.
Right.
Krishna as their order supplier, give me, save my poor mother, she's got cancer or something. As if Krishna doesn't know. You know, I often think like that. Well, why are you praying for anyone? Pray for Krishna's happiness. You know, so this fear. So if you want to get rid of a ghost, you just ignore it. So this phantom of our material disease, this hridrogam, this disease of the heart, is like a ghost. So how do we get rid of that? By ignoring it. And my Gurudev used to describe regularly, if you have a pot, like a clay pot, and you want to get all the air out of the pot, how do you do that? You fill it up with something else. You fill it up with water, and then all the air will go out. So how to get all these diseases and this dark phantom-like mentality of material desires out of us? We want to fill ourselves to the eyes with the sweet pastimes and descriptions of Brajendranandan Shyam Sundar. That means all of Vrindavan, his gopis, Mother Yashoda, Nanda Baba, Sridham Sakha, Stoka Krishna, Lavanga, all of the different personalities, all the different places, Radhakund, Shamakund, Giriraj Govardhan, all these places. Upon hearing the sound of Krishna's flute, the gopis of Braj forgot everything. It's just what I'm saying. By hearing the sound of Krishna's flute, you forget everything. It takes away that ghost of material abhiman, identity. Their fear, that's the first thing it takes away, their fear. I've just described that. It's our fear that is prompting us to do so many things. Hesitation, unsure. This Shraddha Vishvasa, what's it? Shraddha Shabde Vishvasa Koi, Sudrita Nishchoy. This Shraddha Shabde Vishvasa, this is the description of faith. Shraddha Shabde, Vishvasa means confident. When your faith is strong, then you're completely confident about everything you do. You have no lack of confidence in your heart about any activity, any action that you make. You're completely assured that, yes, because I'm doing this in the interest of the Lord, my life is only dedicated to Him. There is nothing else except my attempt to please Him with this very short birth, somehow or other. Their fear, hesitations, patience, dignity. Yes, your dignity. Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj, he describes about this. He says, when you're chanting so nicely, then all of a sudden comes a time when, where is my dignity gone? Where is my soberness gone? Where is my shastric erudition gone? Where is all my identity gone? It just goes away by the potency of the chanting. You're no longer concerned with it. It simply is not a consideration for us. The only consideration is Krishna happy? Is more than this even. This is just the beginning. The second part is Radhika happy? Our desire is actually to please Radhika. Why does Mahaprabhu come? Mahaprabhu comes not specifically to taste the moods of Radhika, but those moods of Radhika will indicate to him what it is in me. Krishna is thinking, what it is in me that Radhika is so attracted to. Krishna wants to know that. He wants to know what he has within himself that Radhika is so absorbed in. And Radhika will go into this stage of Divyanmad, where she'll start just embracing a tamal tree, where she'll start talking like to a bumblebee, in almost like a mad woman, because of her attraction for Krishna. What is it that she's seeing in me? What is this attraction in me? Krishna wants to see that. Mahaprabhu wants to see that. By his absorption in Radhika and her moods, then he can begin to appreciate what is within him. Understand? I'm going to stop in a minute. Yeah, it's got late. Without even calling, so forth. Regardless of the condition they were in, they eagerly ran to meet Sri Krishna. Without even calling their dearmost girlfriends, the Pran Priya Sakhas, they ran to him. I've described this many times, that they went alone, alone, alone. This path is alone. It's a solitary path. Like when we go to Varshana, we go through Sankariko. Only one person can go through at a time physically. You can't go through two together. We've tried. Even you have a parikrama party of 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 people, you still, each person has to enter this Gahavan, this sacred place of Varshana, individually, separately, uniquely. This is our path. It's a solitary path, but it's in the association of others as we're on that. But the ultimate reality is when you have internally connected with the Lord, alone. Without even calling their dearmost girlfriends, the Pran Priya Sakhas, they ran to him. Each gopi thought, Sri Krishna is calling only me. They could hear their name. When Sri Krishna saw that the gopis, who were incomparable treasures of Braj, had come to him, he tried to bewilder them with his delightful art of speaking. My Gurudev explains it very nicely, but it wasn't like that at all. He was very harsh to them. You know, he was cruel to them to such a degree where they just wanted to leave their bodies. But my Gurudev is saying something for general people, so they're not going to feel Krishna is a bad person. But actually, he told them to go home. And this really destroyed the last remnant of their material identities and demonstrated to Krishna the utmost enthusiasm they had to be with him. But this, we haven't even begun to actually enter into Damodarastakam Lila. So tomorrow we'll start from the description of Damodarastakam Lila. But my Gurudev loves to glorify directly Radha and Krishna because he knows this is the antidote for those suffering in this material world. So I've read from Damodarastakam Lila, Damodarastakam, but we haven't actually arrived at Damodar Lila yet. But tomorrow we will. So Damodar Lila ki jai, Damodarastakam ki jai, Anantakota Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Gaura Premanandi, Vanchakalpatrubhyascha, Kripa Sindhuvevacha, Patidanam, Pavanavyo Vaishnava Namaha. So now we'll sing our
Namamishwaram Satchidanandarupam Lasat Kundalam Gokule Vraja-manam Yashodabiyaluka Ladavamanam Oram Vishna Matyanta Todrutya Gopya Rudantamohnetra Yugvam Vijantam Taram Vujajukmena Satankanetram Ruhoshosakam Patirekanta Sritai Gurvatam Modaram Bhaktivadam Iti Drisvalila Ananda Kunde Swagoshami Majantam Adyapayantam Tadiyashita Yeshu Bhaktatitatvam Una Prematastam Shatariti Vande Varam Devam Moksham Na Mokshavadimva Na Janayam Neham Varishadapiha Vidam Deva Purnata Gopala Balam सदा मे मनस्य वीरस्तं किमन्ये निदन्ते मुखं भोजम् अव्यक्तनीले कृतं कुन्तले स्निग्धरक्तैश्च गोप्या मुहुश्चुम्बितं बिम्बरक्तधरं मे मनस्य वीरस्तं अलं लक्ष्यलभे नमो देव दामोदर अनन्त विष्णु यसीद प्रभो दुःख जलधिमग्ना कृपा दृष्टिवृष्ट्याति दीनं वदामो ग्रहणेषु मामज्ञम् एध्यक्षिदिश्य कुबेर आत्मजो बद्धमूर्तैव यद्वास् त्वया मोचितो भक्ति भजो कृतं च यथा प्रेम भक्तिं स्वकमे प्रयच्छ नमो शीघ्रो मे सीतमोदरेह नमस्ते सुदामेश्वर दीप्तिदामे त्वदीयोदयात् विश्वस्य रामे नमो राधिकायै त्वदीयप्रियायै नमो भद्रलीलाय देवाय तुभ्यं नमो राधिकायै त्वदीयप्रियायै नमो भद्रलीलाय देवाय तुभ्यं हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे जय दामोदरा 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 जय राधे दामोदरा राधे दामोदरा राधे जय राधा दामोदरा राधे दामोदरा राधे हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे जय गुरुदेवा जय गुरुदेवा जय गुरुदेवा जय गुरुदेवा जय गुरुदेवा जय गुरुदेवा जय प्रभुपादा जय प्रभुपादा प्रभुपादा जय प्रभुपादा जय प्रभुपादा जय प्रभुपादा प्रभुपादा जय प्रभुपादा हरि बोल जय गौर हरि बोल नित्य गौर हरि
Gaur Premanandi.
Hari
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 Bol.
Bol.
Damodarastakam ki
Ki
jai.
jai.
Radha Damodarju ki jai.
Jai.
Vraja-mandala Parikrama 2023 ki jai.
Jai.
Baelvana ki jai. Ekadasi Brat tomorrow ki
Ki
jai.
jai.
Anantakota Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai.
Jai.
Gaur Premanandi.
Hari Bol.
Hari Hari Bol. Vanchakapatarubhyascha. Kripa Sindhabevacha. Patitanam Pavanibhyo Vaishnavevino Namaha.